Welcome to Think Property Club's Think Tank, where we connect, share, and learn the tips and hacks from our specialists. They become part of our A team, supporting us to create the best developments in the property game.
Hi guys, welcome to today's Think Tank. Really excited to have you here, our Think Property podcast. And I'm glad you're here on a Tuesday lunchtime because I'm sure everybody's deep and thick into their work all day, having lunch, whatever it is. It's about being committed, coming on and educating yourself further in the property and all things related to property. Today, I'm really excited because I've got a special visitor, a friend in the industry, and she specializes in educating people and delivering products that help people, protect people from EMF within housing. And she's going to probably introduce that probably a bit better than me. I'm still learning more about it, but every time I speak to Susan or learn about what she does, it really brightens my world because it makes me think I need to be more responsible in how I build, how I develop, and how I invest in properties. And also how I can create better living, healthy product, housing for myself and for my family and friends and how we live as well. So today's topic is reducing EMF in your new and existing builds. So I want to welcome Susan Oddy to talk about EMF. She and her hubby has a beautiful business helping people understand EMF within our building. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks for having me here today.
Anytime. We love hearing about what you do and how you help people all around Australia and overseas in understanding what EMF is and how we need to learn to build better. So What is EMF and Wi-Fi? And we all live in this so Wi-Fi connected world. We can't live without our phones. We can't live without our computers. We need it to do business. We need it to connect with people. But how can we do it in a safer way so we're protecting our health and our bodies as well?
Well, I guess the key thing, there are four main types of EMF that we see in people's homes and businesses. But the one that's become the most prevalent and probably the most troublesome for people's health at the moment is the radio frequency radiation. And that's the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, smart meters, mobile phones, mobile phone towers. So it does encompass a whole lot of other things, such as it's called the Internet of Things. So every little device, like your robot vacuum cleaner, is emitting wireless radiation all the time. So that's not necessarily called Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or mobile phone. That's just a radio frequency of its own. So there's a whole bunch of devices that we now have in our homes. And the way you can avoid it is really Ethernet cabling is the backbone of how to do that. And in a new build, that's the best time to do it. We've got a lot of clients that are now retrofitting. That's what we do. We help people to install those cables after the fact, and also clients doing it before they build, which is amazing. And it's always cheaper to do it when you're building than trying to get in those cavities later. So I urge people to think about that. And in a space like ours that we've got here, our office, there's no EMFs in this space at all, and it's really, really achievable. We have plenty of devices. We've got lots of smart tech, but it's all cabled. So,
Susan, can you explain to people, I guess, in real simple term, what is EMF? Can we see it? Where is it? Where is it coming from?
Yeah, look, so electromagnetic fields is what EMF stands for. And in simple terms, I like to think of it as a type of electricity that's in the air. It comes in different sizes, and that's what determines which EMF it is. So unfortunately, we can't see it. Some people can hear it. Some people can feel it. And that's the issue is that we don't know it's there. And I can assure you, it's even in my space right now. I've got probably the lowest EMF levels one could hope for in the office with, my meters flashing green here. That's very unlikely anyone else on this meeting today has those kind of levels. But it is achievable. But those levels are even coming from a tower outside this room. And it's coming in through, I've got metal walls, metal roof. It's still coming in. So we are surrounded by wireless radiation is another term we call it, but the technical term is radio frequency. And that's the concern is, yes, you can't see it. You can't, most people can't hear it. And so we just don't realize it's there, but it is. That's how our messages are getting to one another. And that's how we're communicating here today with most of your cohort, everyone's wireless.
Yeah. And look, I guess we can't live without the internet. We need it to function. We want to look at smarter ways we can implement it or have it in our day-to-day. not everybody can get rid of, I guess, their Wi-Fi, have Ethernet, retrofit it, because it is a big costly exercise. Can we look at ways to reduce the EMF if we've already got the wireless?
Yeah, look, there are things you can look at, the ways that we use our devices. So, for example, your mobile phone has got 4, 5, 6 or 8 antennas in them. And you can turn some of those off. You don't need them all on at the same time. If you're not using Bluetooth, turn it off. If you're not using Wi-Fi, turn it off. And just use 4G, that's 2 antennas you've just turned off. If you're not too worried about Find My Phone, you can turn that antenna off, and location services, turn that off. I'm not worried if I lose my phone, well, that's just too bad. So, a lot of us don't really think that we care, and I'm sure it's handy to have, but is it handy to have nuking us constantly? So that's one way. Also, with your Wi-Fis, you can create distance. Distance is your great biggest friend with EMS. So obviously, please don't have a Wi-Fi in a bedroom. When you're designing a home, consider putting the Wi-Fi preferably in the garage. We usually find that's the best spot for it. Admittedly, it could be next to a bedroom still, which is not ideal. So placement is something to think about when the NBN comes along. Where is that Wi-Fi going to be? And another way, obviously, some people have what we call 4G, 5G modems. So they're not NBN modems. You can just go up to Telstra or Optus and buy one of those. Now, they're emitting a significant amount of EMF because not only are they communicating with the towers outside, they're communicating with you inside with Wi-Fi. So NBN is always the way to go. Even if you're renting, we encourage you to get an NBN plan. It shouldn't cost you any more than having one of those portable 4G, 5G modems. So that will reduce your exposure because the modem is not communicating wirelessly inside to the outside. It's going via a cable, which is the NBN. So that will reduce your exposure. One other way is you can turn down the power of your modem. And not all modems can do that. You can go into the settings and actually turn it down. You can sometimes operate them as low as 10% power, and that will significantly reduce your exposure. Other people put Wi-Fi covers over their Wi-Fi, especially if you're sitting in the office with the Wi-Fi and you feel you really need it or the person next to you really wants it. You can put Wi-Fi covers over the modem, and that'll reduce your exposure, but it will still allow connectivity, especially in that close space like an office. It won't work, 20 meters up the other end of the house. Usually that will drop out. But if you don't really have a choice or you can't work out how to stop your modem emitting, a lot of people just buy a bag. We prefer to try and help people turn it off, but you might still want that Wi-Fi, or you might have, mates or family that insist on using it. So there are ways to protect you from that.
Yeah, look, it sounds like there's a lot of different ways you can reduce it wherever you are. I think whatever situation is, it's something, Susan can help you with. So Susan, I'll go through the slides. You let me know when to.
Yeah, look, so our business, Safer EMF, we established this business because we became unwell as a result of exposure to EMS. We were very, very unwell, me personally, and one of our children, our daughter was 6 at the time, and she became EMF sensitive, and we are still, unfortunately, EMF sensitive. So we were surprised how quickly we could recover from our symptoms, and that happened in 24 hours, which is unbelievable. We went from completely, housebound, bedbound to back to normal once we Ethernet cabled our home and stopped using our devices wirelessly. So that was a really big wake-up call for us. We'd never thought about how our phones connected. I certainly hadn't thought about it. My partner is actually an IT engineer specializing in internet. Ironically, and maybe that may have contributed. We were early adopters of Wi-Fi, and we used our devices a lot. We liked it. We were up with the latest apps and the latest mobile phones, and we still are. We just bought pins, and I'll tell you about that later. But so now we're trying to help other people do what we've done, and that is to reduce your exposure. So we can do that in many ways. We're helping renters up in Cairns right now who just wants to run cables to his house. There's other options, but that's what he's happy to do. And we're helping him get that Wi-Fi off in his place. So we do EMF testing and advisory on the Gold Coast region, and where we will go out and actually assess the levels in your place and make recommendations based on your budget and your needs. We do the wireless to wired IT conversion, which is, we love doing that because we know we're turning things off. We're turning off so many antennas and you can still use your devices. Maybe not in the same way that you were, but that's each client can choose how they do that. And we also have a large range of EMF protection, product shielding, and EMF meters. So we only stock products that physically block, shield, or reduce the EMFs. We don't sell any products that claim to harmonize or crystals or anything like that. We're not saying the crystals don't work. They're an added valuable part of everyone's environment. But for the purposes of EMS, we like to sell what is proven to actually reduce it based on an EMF meter. So that's what you'll find in our online store.
Beautiful. Now, there are so many products I remember seeing that were very new to me and probably new to a lot of you, thinking, well, how is Wi-Fi going to hurt me? But I don't know if anyone's got that feeling when you're like watching something, a movie or TV show on your phone and your hand just gets really hot and it's feeling buzzy or your back. Guys, that's when you've had so much exposure to your internet around you. And that is a really sign to have a break from it and drop it, leave it, get into nature and get grounded again. Because in this world that we're living in, we're so reliant on having information immediately, but it can really affect how we operate, how we think, and, our stress levels as well. So today's really just giving you guys awareness of how we can have more balance in our day-to-day. You're going to be able to function better. You're going to be able to focus better if we have less EMF, direct EMF through our bodies. So I guess, what are the things that you guys do to test it or to find out? Because each person's phone will be wired differently and people will be using different technology.
Yeah, look, so if we're going to an on-site test, we'll usually test for the 4 main types of EMF. So that's the radio frequency, and we'll use often our Safe and Sound Pro to measure that. And that'll tell us what are the levels coming in from the outside, from cell towers and neighbors' Wi-Fi. Usually neighbors' Wi-Fi is not the worst thing. People are like, oh, well, my neighbors still got their Wi-Fi on. Why would I bother turning mine off? No. Definitely turn yours off. Whatever's closest to you, even if your neighbor's very close, they've got walls and whatnot between you, it's still reducing your exposure significantly. It's usually your Wi-Fi and your wireless device that is affecting you the most. Don't worry about what your neighbors are doing just yet. And so we'll go out and we'll measure those 4 types of EMF. So we've got the radio frequency, which is the wireless radiation, which is mobile phones, Bluetooth, 5G towers coming into your home, smart meters, getting very common lately, especially coming, Victoria, it's mandatory, but other states it's not mandatory. So we do urge you to opt out. And then we also measure the electric fields, which is what might come from your light bulbs, from your bedside lamps. If someone had an electric blanket, for example, some grounding sheets can also emit electric fields. So it's something to be really careful about. Magnetic fields from the switchboard. So that's something that's really important in your builds. Is please do not plan to put a switchboard behind somebody's bedhead. We're seeing it way too often in new builds. It's absolutely devastating. They need to be moved. They literally have to disassemble that with an electrician and move it somewhere else. So please think about placement. That's probably my number one point today. I've seen way too many people with cancer and all sorts of other illnesses, and you find that they are sleeping with their head against the switchboard. And
so we put it in the garage. Is that a good position? Because garage is...
Yeah, usually that's great, yeah. On the side of the garage is typically where it used to be. The concern we've had over the last few years, even in new builds, for some reason, we've had a lot of clients ringing us up saying, look, I've just built a new place. And they insisted there was nowhere else to put the switchboard. They put it behind my bedhead. And there's nowhere else to put the bed. It's like, well, sleep up the other end for starters, but the electric bills will still get your feet. So that's something, there's not a lot of options. The layout of a room is the bed's meant to go in a certain space. So really, really important not to put that there. And the reasons you don't put that behind someone's head is the magnetic fields are well beyond extreme. The electric fields are well beyond extreme, and some of them will also have a smart meter in them. So the smart meter will emit wireless radio frequency radiation. So really important to make sure that switchboard is not put behind somebody's head. And also if there's a secondary switch, like when the home that we moved into had a butler's pantry, and in the butler's pantry was the secondary switchboard, and that had to be moved. We had to spend $5,000 to remove that from the butler's pantry because I couldn't go in there. It was gave me headaches. It made me feel very unwell just from the magnetic fields. And I didn't even think that was something that I was sensitive to until we moved in here and had to change that. So it was crazy. And the last thing is also the dirty electricity. So we measure dirty electricity. Now, dirty electricity is a little less commonly known, but it's very, very common. So dirty electricity, if you have solar panels on your roof, I guarantee you have high levels of dirty electricity. You don't even need to test it. Or if you are running air conditioners, most air conditioners have an inverter in them, and that will create what's called dirty electricity. And that is where the electrical spikes are normally 50 hertz in Australia, but when you've got dirty electricity, it goes much higher. Every time the inverter is going on and off and on and off, and it's trying to save you money on your electricity consumption, it's sending out these massive highs and lows to your electrical, which comes out of the wall. You can actually feel it. I can feel it. I can actually feel dirty electricity. So unfortunately, at this moment in Australia, there's not a lot of solutions for that. You can do, these are extreme examples, but install things like kill switches where you can turn the power off at night, which we do in our home, and because we are electrically sensitive. But that's probably not something you need to consider at this stage. But we're looking at long-term. We want government regulation on filtering, so that filters would be installed with all air conditioners and with all solar panel inverters to make sure that these dirty electricity, which is known to cause significant health effects, and I do think it was a massive contributor to making us unwell in our home, our old home. And we did move, so we had to leave that area, and because the dirty electricity was unmanageable. But yes, we test all those and come back with a range of solutions for people to reduce their exposure to those 4 types of EMF.
Yeah, that's really interesting because when I look at it, most houses will have all of those, right?
Right. Well, absolutely. We have a very long list when we've been to most people's homes. It's unusual that people are actually in a safe environment.
Yeah, and solar panels obviously something they promote to reduce, electricity spend and energy. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, how can we use these products in a safer way? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And let me just say, because a lot of people do think about solar, they worry about the placement of the panels. Now, the placement of the panels is not usually the concern. So you can put the panels above someone's bedroom, and that won't usually be a significant issue in that bedroom. You could put it above their office, it wouldn't matter. It's where the inverter is. And the inverter will have its own set of magnetic and electric fields and radio frequency. Yeah. But the dirty electricity goes throughout the entire circuit. So it affects every room. It doesn't matter where you put those panels. The dirty electricity will feed through your entire home just from that one source, being solar or aircon. So it doesn't have to be the aircon in that room that will affect that room from dirty electricity. It gets on the whole circuit. So it's not a great deal you can do about that. There are filters available. We do have one associate that does install them. Unfortunately, he's been over in the US for quite a while now, and he's been working on some significant projects over there for EMF, and he will be back, and he does install these filters for all of our clients, which is amazing.
And I guess, how does the filter work in reducing it? Do you install it in the inverter or in the panels?
Yeah, look, the filters, we ended up with 3 here. This is my home office, and we have 2 air conditioners, and we don't have solar yet. We would like to get solar maybe. I'm very, very, very not keen. I've been resisting it for a while, but now that we have these filters, I'm less concerned. So I can feel the difference, and we can measure the difference for sure. So the filters are basically surge protection. Well, they're not surge, but they're like surge protection, and they will catch all those spikes and transients, and they will smooth them out and spit them out in a slower fashion. So it's just an organizing of electricity, really. It's just to slow it all down and say, okay, let's just go back to 50 hertz on our lines and not keep doing this. Okay. So it's really just an electrical componentry. It's not magic. It's not a harmonizer or something like that. It's actually, installed by an electrician usually between your switchboard and your home. It'll usually be next to the switchboard. We happen to have one on each air conditioner as well. Not on the air conditioner, but outside near the electricity where the air conditioner is connected. We have one on each there. But most homes, it depends on the home. You might need 1, you might need 3. If you've got 3-phase electrical, you'll need a lot more.
And the air conditioner still function as normal?
Yeah. It's really just smoothing out the electricity flow. And it's not that unusual. It's actually used very commonly in hospitals and commercial environments where they don't want their equipment to blow up. They need to keep that dirty electricity really low to have no interference with their imaging equipment. and things like that. So it's actually not new technology. It's been around for a long time, but we haven't been using it in residential applications as much as we should. So we are certainly committed to trying to get more of that available in Australia, where you can actually just order it and get that up to any electrician who can install it.
And the reason they don't put it in the products when they first make it is just cost, right?
Cost, yeah. And they could. A lot of devices, when they're manufacturing, when you buy a premium product versus, well, that's not always the way. Usually with a premium product, you might get some wireless radiation you don't want, like, don't buy the smart devices. But, a high grade product like a Bose stereo, they're going to put a lot more infrastructure in there to make it beautiful sound quality and last. And they spend on those little instruments of not having noise distortion and things like that. So at the moment, people aren't seeing the value in understanding that this is a problem, and that somebody will, I assure you, somebody will design a solar panel that already has a filter installed, which would be amazing. As soon as they do that, they'll spread the word everywhere.
Yeah, I love it because it's just, understanding how it works, and if commercial like already using it.
They've been using it for many, many years, probably 30 years more.
The filters are there. How can we put it into our products, right?
Absolutely. Or just as a standard build, you must have this on your build in your electrical switchboard. It needs to be mandatory because people don't understand just how sick their dirty electricity. I had a message from someone in New Zealand just last night saying, I've just installed solar. I'm now feeling sick. Where can I get filters from? And that's a hard question. When we don't service New Zealand, but there's need for it. This person can feel it. So obviously I told him, can you just turn off your solar for now? We don't want them to get any sicker, because it could become permanent. They could become permanently sensitive if they're not already. And, or their sensitivity could become more extreme, which is very dangerous. So we don't want that. So we said, could you just turn off solar until you can get yourself some filtering happening over there in New Zealand? So it's certainly an awareness. People can notice the difference when they become sick the day that they install their solar.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And obviously everybody's different in terms of their health and their body and what they're exposed to and how they react to it. Talking about minimizing, right? Not completely getting rid of.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've got a lot of clients that, they still want to use their Wi-Fi, but they still want to have it on, but they want to make sure their main devices are cabled. So they'll probably cable their office laptop, they'll cable their TVs, but then they're happy to walk around their home with their phone on Wi-Fi. That's what they want to do. And some people need to because they don't have a good connectivity with 4 or 5G. So they use Wi-Fi calling in the home. So there is certainly a need, and we're happy to help people do it how they want to do it. And you don't need to turn everything off. We were forced. We had no choice but to turn everything off. But you can certainly do half or even less if that's what you're going to do.
Just a little bit to start off with is important, right? Okay. So what are some little things people can start off with to understand how to reduce that within currently their home, their office, what they do? And I guess for this, it's for personally for themselves, but in terms of some of these things, we'll talk about some of these things, and we talk about maybe how you can implement some of them in a new build, for example, after Susan. Just a couple of points.
Yeah, look, I think we get calls all the time. People are like, oh, look, I think I've got some EMFs in my home. I want to buy a canopy, $1,000 canopy to sleep under. And I'm like, no, don't start with a canopy. You need to measure first. You might not need the canopy, or the canopy might not be the answer for your problem. So we always encourage people to buy a meter. We've got meters, this is the more top of the range, around 589. This is the best radio frequency meter you could buy. And I encourage you, if you're willing to invest, get one of those. We use it even professionally, but it is designed for a consumer. It's really easy to use. And we've got a cheaper model, which is just a no-frills version of the same meter. It doesn't have the numbers on it. It just has lights. If you don't, it's really quite a wake-up call. My client in Cairns, who's just, he ordered this Pro, and he thought, he knew he wasn't feeling very well in his place up, rental property up in Cairns, and he's measured and he's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I've been trying to ground. I've been drinking green smoothies. I've been eating organic. I've been filtering my water. I've been doing all these things, but I've been cooking myself like a Christmas ham. And he couldn't believe the levels. His Wi-Fi is incredibly strong. And he was absolutely shocked. And So he's had a Wi-Fi off for about a week now while we've been planning what he's going to do in terms of, we've just got stuff to send out to him today, actually, a new modem where the Wi-Fi can be turned off easily, cables, and he's going to rig himself up a little LAN, we call it, a local area network, which is just basically a bunch of cables and adapters linked back to the modem, which is connected to the NBN. But it was purchasing this that actually made him wake up. He went, I didn't realize. I didn't know how much I was affecting me. And yesterday, he emailed and he said, I need this and I need it now. I want this to happen because I'm just having the Wi-Fi off this week. I've realized it is affecting me. As soon as I turn it on, I feel sick. And he did not consider himself to be electrically sensitive. And I didn't think he was either because he never said he was. He just wanted to be as healthy as possible and protect his family. But now he's realized it was actually affecting him and he needed that time away from it to notice. He didn't know how to turn everything off without actually measuring it and going, oh, okay, things are still on. Okay, I thought I got them all, but there's still something emitting in here. There's a watch in the corner, or there's a speaker in the corner, or an iPad lying under the couch, TV remotes, TVs. And with this, you can definitely find all those sources and make some informed decisions about what needs to be on and what doesn't. And so that I think is a really good investment in the meters. We've also got what we call multimeters. So the Tri-Field is the bestseller. It measures electric fields, magnetic and radio frequency. So it's not as amazing as the Safe and Sound, the green one for radio frequency, but it gives you 3-in-1. So you get 3 different types of electromagnetic fields measured in the 1 meter, and it's quite affordable. And also this EMVRD10, which is actually my favorite of all meters. If I could only buy 1 meter, this is the one I would get. I carry this in my handbag everywhere. I'm not kidding, Amy. I take this with me everywhere. If I have to choose, it's so small, and it's got this awesome little alarm on it that will alarm when the levels are high, and also coloured lights. I can't really show you many because I don't have much EMF in this space, and it won't alarm until I turn something on. So I don't recommend starting with shielding. There's always a last resort. Yes, we sell shielding products, and we'd love to sell you shielding products if you need them, but we would prefer you learn about what is in your space and then give us a call and say, hey, well, I've ended up with these 4 things that I can't get rid of. What do we really need? Like, you don't need a canopy. Well, this guy didn't need a canopy. He needed to spend some money on some cables and just rig up a little network, which is going to be amazing. It'll be so much better value than spending $3,000 on a big canopy.
Yeah, amazing. And look, there's all these things in here. You've got like things for your ears, for your mobile phones. I'm sure we all got some sort of earpods or
AirPods.
AirPods.
Yeah, look, I'm using them now. These are actually, if you can hear me clearly, I hope you can. This is actually air tubes. So there's only a hollow tube between here and here. These are the Defender Shield ones, the top of the range. I highly recommend them because they don't twist. Real cheap ones will just twist up and you're constantly having to untwist them. These have got this beautiful thick cable that's woven, and I use these for all of my consoles. I have a spare pair in my bag, and these are the top of the range ones, and the sound quality is amazing, and there's no electricity between here and here. Whereas if I was to put in a standard set of headphones and I measure it with this meter, this would be alarming up here in my brain. It would be saying you've got electricity coming into your brain that doesn't need to be there. Whereas here, it stops down here. It stops, down the bottom, which is, they're nice to have. But most people buy them. Look, there are things like that are our top sellers. People even want to buy alarm clocks. And one of the best things I'll tell you that we sell on the website is actually these PowerPoint controllers. So we call them the Wi-Fi kill switch. And you can just hit a little remote control button every night and it will just turn your Wi-Fi off. And then when you get up in the morning, flick it back on if that's what you want to do. So you can get a 3-pack and turn 2 TVs up as well. They're some of our best sellers is those little items. And for people who are electrically sensitive and affected by EMFs, they need the more serious protection. They need the curtains, the wall protection, the window protection. They need the sleeping canopies, and that's sort of getting into the very big investments of for people to have to do that. But if as we're here for a reason, and that is to encourage people to build homes that aren't affected, because we can't seem to control what's happening out there with the telcos. So it's really nice if the builder can consider, which way the window's facing, and other walls potentially shielded would be a bonus. Putting on a ColourBond roof is always more protective than a tiled roof. So those protections, you don't need them if they're already there, which is great.
And I think if you guys are, intending to build or looking at changing building materials within existing houses, definitely have a look at what Susan and hubby do in a business, because it's simple tips like putting Ethernet cables. These are the old traditional blue cables that you used to wire the house with in between all the rooms, and then you plug in your modem and plug it into your laptops. I'm sure there's different adapters that we can still use way, but it's so interesting when you do use one of those EMF meters to check, it's so much lower and you feel so much better. And for us, we see it as a good selling point as well. When we're developing and looking at new products, Jason and I will look at, okay, well, how can we reduce EMF and make this building a healthy building? So this is one part of building biology. We have a speaker that will come on later that talks about building biology, and that's looking at all different components of safer building products, healthier building products to increase a better livability and promote better health. And most people these days want good health, right? They don't want a building that's toxic and they're not going to enjoy it, because you can feel it. When you go in a home, you can feel whether the house feels good. You can feel that. If you go into an old cruddy house and there's like water coming off the side of the walls and there's mold there, like you feel that. You feel it's not like a nice environment to be in. So all these things that we're going through today, it's only one aspect, and it's about educating you guys on how to be aware of how we can live in better places and build better places. And it could be new to a lot of you, but this is awareness. Research into it. Susan's gone through this. This is why she's passionate about what she does. There's so many things you guys can do without buying anything that will already protect you. Just said, turn off your phone to airport mode. Turn off the power points around you. Make sure there's no massive power meters behind your bed head on the other room, right? And, when I'm going to bed, I put on airport mode. When I'm going for walks, I put on airport mode when I've got the phone in my pocket, right? Unless I know I'm expecting something really important call. Anything that's close to my body, I try and turn it off. Susan and, her hubby actually came out and did the check on our house. And interestingly enough, Jason is really tech savvy. So he's got Wi-Fi this, Wi-Fi that. And we're like, oh, it's so good. Everything's so convenient. When she came into my office and she put the meter checking the calculation of it, I think it was like shock horror. It was
the highest we'd ever measured at that point. It was pretty good.
And it's funny because I never really enjoyed sitting in my office for a long time. I just felt really tired and couldn't focus, and I'd be like, I need a break. I need to get out of there. And we had all the modems in my office in a little cupboard at the bottom. So all the internet was emitting from my office to the rest of the house. Shock horror, right? We wouldn't even think that was an issue, why I didn't want to be in there. And so we moved the meters to other parts of the house. We put Ethernet in my office, so it's not wireless. And we still got wireless in the house, but it's just clever little tricks on not having it turned on all the time when we're close to it. And if we're sitting in an office for a long period, Ethernet, blue cable, right? So, yeah, simple little tricks, right, Susan, that made really...
Yeah, absolutely. And on our website, we don't always have time for writing blogs, but we do have some incredible blogs on there, if I can say so myself. There's one that's, it's up to about 10,000 reads. It's why airplane mode no longer protects you from wireless radiation. It's something even you should read, Amy, just to make sure. But you've got a meter, right? So you should measure.
Yeah, can you tell me what the page is on your website, Susan?
Go to the blog page. So there's we only blog about what we think is important. So read them all. Like, they're very quick reads. The important ones at the moment, I think, the airplane mode one is very, very popular. It's being read around the world everywhere, and it's so important because, as you said, you put your phone in airplane mode, but is it really off? And have you got your meter out and measured? Most people don't own a meter, so they haven't been able to check. So I urge you to check yours as well, Amy. Because the new phones, not just the new phones, airplane mode doesn't turn off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth always, whereas it used to. And it's now changed because we want to use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on airplanes. So remember, airplane mode was not there to protect us from EMFs. It was actually there to protect us from dying in a plane crash, from electrical interference. So That's why airplane mode was invented in the first place. But now that we want to use Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on the plane, it doesn't always turn it off. So they're still emitting. So we want to make sure those are turned off as well. So that's one of our most popular blogs. The common sources of EMF, if you just want to learn the basics, is there. I urge you all to have a look at that and understand what are the 4 most common types is really good. And what was the other one that I'm just thinking another popular? There's obviously, we've got symptoms and things like that there. And
we'll put it in the chat section as well, guys. Our team's found that. And I'll make sure I put it in the email once we've done this recording to send to you all as well, all the students in here.
Yeah. And one that's not actually on a blog yet. It was on our Facebook page and Instagram just last week. We bought iPhone 15s and we never thought we'd do that. We thought they would be troublesome. We thought we couldn't use them. We thought we'd have to put them in a big bag of foil or something. Turned out we could use them, and we can use them in a safe way, but they must be in certain settings. So I've blogged about that and shared a video showing the high settings and the low settings in the video. Urge you to have a look at that because that's not yet in a blog. That's just on Facebook and Instagram, those videos, and YouTube now, actually. We've got both those videos there, which is interesting. It'll show you why we had that problem with the buttons, the white buttons and airplane mode.
So the iPhone 15 will be similar to iPhone 14 and 16?
Oh, well, I can't comment on that because we haven't tested them. We obviously don't sit down in the laboratory, test all this stuff. So we had a 7. I was using a 7 until now. I can't update the software, so I'm like, I'm going to have to get a new phone. Ken actually got a 15. We thought, well, we'll test this. Worst case scenario, you're not bringing it into the house. And it turned out, as long as he put it in these settings, it was okay for us who being electrically sensitive to have it in that mode. So that's what we call an SMS mode, is very, very low. So a lot of people, especially people who just want to be contactable for their children, may not suit all business owners who need to be contactable online all the time. But if you're on your computer, you're usually contactable anyway. So you really need to consider if that's a suitable mode for you. But it does show just how big a difference it makes. So we're not saying that the 15 is safer or safe. We're just saying that in certain settings, we can have it flashing low like this, and I can sit next to it all day. Mine's actually in these settings right now. And I'm happy to sit right next to it, which is unbelievable for most people to comprehend, that an electrically sensitive person could sit next to their phone and it's still mostly on. The Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, and the internet is off. And I use a cable for the internet, which is a bit bizarre, but that's how we do it. We have measured, just so you know, I don't actually remember if it was a 12 or a 13. We had a guest stay and we measured because we were picking up levels and they were staying overnight after a party. And they said, oh, my phone's off. And sure enough, their iPhone, I think it was a 13, was off, completely off. And it was emitting 4,000 microwatts, which is 4 times above extreme. And they were surprised too. I was surprised. We had to put it in a Faraday bag to stop it from emitting so that we could all sleep that night. And they've been sleeping next to it every night thinking that their phone was off. So we didn't have time to look at the settings and work out why. Yeah. But it's something to be careful of. I can't say that all the different phones are safe in those modes. It really pays to measure.
Yeah, that's very interesting, guys. So go on that blog. It's on the chat link and just read about it. So we look at the 5 key areas for property developers to consider. We talked about this a little bit already. So I guess this is what you can help people with when they're building something new.
Yeah, look, I think number 1 and 2 we probably haven't covered, and I would like to just mention site EMF assessment. So I was talking to Amy before. We've had a 5G in Australia since about 2018, various sites. Now it's on almost every mobile phone antenna site now. It has 5G. It's called low band 5G. But what they're doing now is they're putting high band 5G outside people's front doors, outside their bedrooms, on the power poles. And they're putting them every 100 to 150 meters because it doesn't travel very far. So that's what we call the real 5G. So everyone's worried about 5G, but this is what we should really be worried about. It's the real 5G, I call it, because it's going to be inescapable. So if you've got it outside your front door, your front lawn's going to be covered in EMFs. Your drive in and out is going to be covered in EMFs. Walking the dog covered in EMFs. So when you're building, you want to keep an eye out. One, they might already be installed.
What does it look like, Susan?
Suburbs like, I know, Murrumbeena. I wish I had a photo handy. It's just a small square box, probably about that big, metal box. And there'll be 2 of them. There'll be 2 of them. And one will be a 4G and one will be a high band 5G. because they need to work together. And they will be on top of usually a street power pole. Sometimes they might need to install a new pole, but usually they'll use the existing infrastructure. And there's nothing to stop them. We've got clients down in Murrumbeena who have had them installed 20 metres from their bedroom window. And unfortunately, they're really low to the ground. So they're much more toxic than these big, tall towers, which look unsightly and scary. These small ones can be a lot more toxic because they're so low to the ground. They're just emitting much denser amounts of radiation at that level. And so you really want to check visually, are there some in the area? Just by looking up, look for these little square boxes that you've not seen in other suburbs. They're definitely around Sydney, Melbourne. I'm pretty sure we don't have any on the Gold Coast. We only have 4G small cells at the moment on the Gold Coast. But that's not much better. It's still low-hanging devices where people are walking in some of our most beautiful spaces like Miami and Broad Beach and Surfers Paradise and whatnot. So they're still not on big towers, and people just don't realise they're there. They think they're out doing their healthy walk and jog and having their green smoothie, but they're sitting in an absolute ton of radiation while they're doing it. So But the easiest thing to do for your followers is to look up a website called, could you write this down for me, Amy?
Yep.
So that is the main site that lists all telco towers, including small cell and NBN in Australia. You can search by suburb. You can search by street. I recommend searching by the street and the address. And you just hit go and it will bring up all the towers that are currently in the area, including small cell, the high band 5G things. And it'll bring all the current ones, all the proposed ones. And occasionally there might be one or two listed there that don't actually exist. So you need to be careful and don't just assume it's there if it's not. Some of them might have been listed 5 years ago and never got built, and they just forgot to take it down. So you do need to double check on what's around the area once you've looked at that website, and it'll list all the different sites that are in the area and what address they're at, and you can make some informed decisions about your EMF orientation. Are the windows facing directly towards EMF antennas? You definitely don't want to do that. So, you might want to orient your garages that way, or, a side of the house that's got a lot of bricks and shielding, or trees even. Just really take into account where those antennas are facing the building. And if you have a colour-bond roof, that's great because it will reflect all of those EMFs. If it's a tile renovation, for example, I presume you don't build with tile. Do people build with tiles anymore?
No, because it is a higher cost and it's a specific look. People don't unless it's for like a big luxury high mansion.
Yeah, it does sound very luxurious, doesn't it now? Yeah, I think about it. But but the good thing is the colour bond, a lot of standard builds now are really good protection from radio frequency. It can't penetrate it. And so you're offering a lot of protection for the roof. If you're doing a renovation, the tiles, the EMS will come through the roof. So that's when you need to think about installing things like oil up in the roof, for example, or sarking, if that's a problem. But you just want to be really careful because they can put these things up after you've built and you may not have known it was coming, and it will decrease your property value. When you go to sell these apartments or units or whatever it is you're doing, Telstra has come along and put a small cell outside your new block. I'd be surprised if it doesn't decrease the value.
Yeah, beautiful. Check that on that website. Just had a squeeze. So that's going to really help everybody. Amazing. So the EMF orientation, that's good. And look, some of these things you'll be able to find at the beginning, some of them not. Afterwards there are things you can do to shield it, but buyers are savvy too. They know what to look out for. They're not going to want to buy with all these towers outside their bedrooms or next to their blocks, and they'll be able to feel it as well when they're there. So the more you can steer away from the towers when you're looking for sites, the better as well. That's why it's best you go out on site to check what's around you and ask the agents. They know what's surrounding as well, the areas. Awesome. Is there anything else, Susan?
No, look, I think we covered Ethernet cabling. Obviously, the more you can install, the better. But if you can even just run 3, one to maybe the master bedroom or the TV, one to an office and one to, I don't know. It's just a few around the house is a good start. People can pick up, especially if there's something to the office already. You can just put a switch in. You don't need to run a whole bunch of extra cables. If you want to keep it lower budget, just run a few for starters, and then you can sell it as an Ethernet cabled home. You don't have to put 30 cables in. If you do that, that will increase the cost significantly. So just having the basics would be really good. Electrical cabling, please don't run it behind people's bed heads. If you've got, a nice wall-mounted lamp behind people's beds, don't run the cable from one to the other, because that's going to, affect them with EMFs all night. And so really think about your placement of that cabling. It needs to drop down from the roof or coming from the sides. That kind of thing, really, really important so that people can sleep in what we call, an EMF, low EMF sleep sanctuary. Electrical cabling, obviously the bulk of it will be near the switchboard, which we talked about. Please don't put those behind people's bed heads. And shielding materials, if you do find you really great site, you might get a really good buy on it because it does have a telco tower next door. You want to think about, do you want to put in some shielding materials like, we sell radiation blocking foil. So we've got window film you can put up that will block pretty much all of it, unbelievably. And it looks clear, like it's a slight grey hue, but if you put it on every window, you'll never even notice it. Or we've got shielding curtains that we sell, or you can make up your own beautiful flowy curtains with that. Or in the build, you can also put this wire mesh if you wanted to have something more breathable. This will block over 99% of those radio frequencies. So these are a last resort, though. We don't want to have to sell you this. We'd rather you pick a better site or build it with a better EMF orientation. This is absolutely last resort, putting shielding in a building. There's actually a council in Western Australia that actually requires it. They will not approve your building and possibly renovation if your windows face a tower unless you've put this window film on the windows, which is amazing. I can't believe it. I kept getting a lot of people inquiring and buying this product from a certain area of Western Australia. And I did ask the other day, I said, look, can I just ask, is this a requirement? And they said, yes, it is. There was a window glazier and they are required now to install it or they can't get building approval.
Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, look, somebody's doing the right thing there.
Absolutely. Hats off to that person in council who got that through. But that's what's going to happen. Like, it is going to happen because people are getting sick. Sadly, people are getting really sick. And it's not just, I sort of feel like we were some of the first. There was definitely a lot of people before us. But we sort of got sick around that time that 5G first went live. But there were a lot of other, it wasn't just the 5G. I think it was the dirty electricity for us. And but it's just taking away that wireless radiation was enough to restore our health very quickly, which was very, very eye-opening and unbelievable to see me go from severely incapacitated one day to perfectly like I was before.
Yeah, we've got a question on that, Susan. So I won't go into that just yet. So I've got your details here. People want to look up the website for your company with the blog and some of the products and how you can help others. For our current students, we're going to go to some Q&A with Susan. I know you've got some chat in there already, so we'll go into that. Susan, I'll read it out for you. And some of the questions you already answered already. Dean here said, how much EMF is emitted from cables?
From cables? That's a good question. So it depends. You will get some level of electric fields coming from an Ethernet cable. Depends what type of cable you're talking. I'll cover them both anyway. So an Ethernet cable will still emit a very, very tiny amount of electric field. And an electrical cable it does depend on the actual voltage and the current and amps that is actually required to go up that cable. So people ask us all the time, we've got these power lines outside this house, should I buy it? It's like, well, we don't know. We don't know what how many people are using it, how much current is actually flowing on those lines. So some people say, the bigger ones are more dangerous. Yeah, they do emit a lot more, but they're also a lot higher, whereas the little street ones are right outside your bedroom. So it's actually varies way too much to put a number on it. Definitely in the extreme levels, but that depends where you're standing. So if you were to build a house that was, let's say, I'm just throwing numbers out there, 3 meters from a set of power lines, you are putting those people at risk of being in extreme levels of EMF. If you were to build it 10 meters from those power lines, there's a very good chance it's low EMF. But it depends on the power lines. It depends on, what the infrastructure is that's out there, because it might be the main source of power through the area plus the local lines, or it might be very low compared to the tall ones. So yeah, sorry, I can't put a figure on that, but distance is your friend with electrical cables.
Amazing. What range of hertz are measured?
Where the hertz, the spectrum pretty much goes from 0 all the way up to millimeter wave, which is 26 gigahertz, that's the highest we've got. Well, it's not the highest we've got in Australia. That's the highest the telcos are emitting as far as we're aware in Australia is 26 gigahertz. So The electromagnetic spectrum goes from the low frequency stuff, which is really low hertz. So you're talking 50 hertz. And then it's going up into dirty electricity, which is getting to the higher hertz and megahertz. And then it becomes radio frequency, which is quite a big band. And that goes up to, at the moment, 26 gigahertz, which is high band at G in Australia. And then obviously there's some other applications that go higher than that. And then you get into your X-ray, and which we don't really talk about. That's ionizing radiation. That's sort of out of our realm, and people easily accept that X-rays are dangerous. We don't have to argue that with anyone, including medical professionals. But as you go further in, it becomes more dangerous. So, that's the implied incidence. But even lower range, electricity can be considered dangerous because it's alternating current.
No, thank you, Susan. Sonia said, you and your family experience some sort of symptoms. Can you better understand the importance of minimizing EMF in the home? I guess you explained that already, and different people will feel it differently.
Yeah, and just one extreme example is my daughter and I had completely different symptoms, and we were very, very sick, and we did not realize we had the same trigger. So when we Ethernet cabled our home, we thought we were doing it for her sake, because we knew that she was electrically hypersensitive, because she had every symptom on the diagnosis list. She had like 20 symptoms to an extreme degree. I only had 2 of those, and we never even thought that was my problem. I was incapacitated, and as soon as we Ethernet cabled, I recovered and she recovered. And we went, oh my gosh, I must be electrically sensitive. We didn't realize. So the symptoms are, there's a blog on our website, the common symptoms of EMF or EH. Definitely have a look at that. They are common, but it's not to say that everybody has the same symptoms, and we certainly didn't realize.
Just the less you have, the better you feel overall. If a home has a switchboard on the outside wall opposite a bedroom and it's too costly to relocate it, would a filter be a helpful solution, or at least help reduce the effects?
Not really. Unfortunately, filter's not the answer. What you would need to do there is the biggest problem we've got there is magnetic fields. So that's one of the 4 most common types. So magnetic fields are very, very hard to shield. You need to use, I didn't get a sample out, but it's a piece of metal basically to shield it. And it'll cost about probably it's not this, it's much thicker than this, but it looks a bit like this. You've got to put these massive sheets of shielding material up, and that would cost about, I would estimate, $5,000 to do an average bedroom wall. I'm talking, a 3x3 bedroom. So $5,000 shielding exercise to get that down to safe levels. And it's extremely complicated to install. Trying to get it inside the cavity would be very difficult because it's not thin. It's quite a thick material. So that would get rid of everything. If you could install that, you would get rid of the electric fields, the magnetic fields, the radio frequency, and the dirty electricity. So all 4 sources of EMF would be gone. The alternative is you can block 3 of those with this foil, but the problem is magnetic fields are still terribly dangerous. So yes, it's great to reduce 3 of them, but you're still left with 1. And that one is still very dangerous. So again, if you're going to spend $5,000 on shielding, I don't make any money selling the electrician that's going to move that switchboard. But it's really, really worth thinking about, can it be moved? Even 2 meters can make a really big difference, or can the bed be relocated to another spot? So yeah, this is why we prefer people to put their switchboard in the right place to start with, because that $5,000 bill for shielding is a massive task.
And look, it's as easy as moving the bed or making that bedroom into something else, right? Might not have.
Oh, absolutely. Like people need to say, okay, well, I'm just going to have to sleep in a room that doesn't have the ensuite. And people who are electrically sensitive do that anyway. They just move. I've got a client in Surface Paradise who's just sleeping in some random corner of his bathroom because that's where he feels good. He doesn't feel well anywhere else in his house. So he had no choice. He just goes, well, I feel good in this little corner, and he's measured it, and there's no EMF in that corner. So he sleeps there. So, yeah, really important.
Interesting. And how far away does a switchboard need to be away from a bed head? Is it 2 meters like bed, or a bit more?
I would prefer more, but 2 meters is really good. Distance is everything. And look, my childhood bedroom actually, ironically, has the switchboard on the wall, and I have actually measured it, and it's perfectly fine a couple of meters from there. But it depends where the cables are running. Are they running through the wall behind that person's head? Are they running up and down, or where are they coming from? So in our home, the the cable's all under the home, not above us. So it's really, you don't just think about the switchboard, think about the cables that are coming in and out of that switchboard and all the power that's coming in and out. And also the inverter is often placed with the switchboard these days for the solar panels. You want to keep that as far away as possible as well.
Good. Thank you. And then Dean, he said, you can use your current electrical wire as Ethernet conductors. Is this a problem?
Yeah, you can use what's called power line adapters, which will send your it'll send your internet over the electricity. We have had some problems just from a connectivity perspective with those and overheating. We use them temporarily when we go to a client site, and they really want to be off EMF. They want to get rid of those RF EMF straight away. So we will temporarily install those and give them that freedom from Wi-Fi straight away, and then we'll come along and get the Ethernet installed. But some people use them permanently, and the issue is they can create and do create some dirty electricity on those lines because it's sending a different type of signal along the electrical lines. Unfortunately, that's adding another EMF to the space. We personally don't think it's as dangerous as the radio frequency that you're now removing. So it can be a benefit. The client that I'm working with this week in Cairns had the option of either Ethernet cabling a rental property, using power line adapters, or running cables on the floor. He's a health hacker, so he's chosen to run cables on the floor. I was surprised. Most people think that would balk at that idea, but he knew there's an increased risk with using power line adapters. It would create higher levels of dirty electricity in the walls. It would also create higher levels of electricity in these devices. They can overheat the adapters. So if you've got your device in your hand, the adapters can get very hot because they're connected to an electrical device. Once again, that's sort of a last resort as well. We do use them. And sometimes we have no choice because it's almost impossible to run a cable somewhere. So we will use them sparingly. But yeah, it's worth having a go. The internet connectivity is not as great. It doesn't produce as good as an Ethernet cable by a long shot.
There's so much to learn, Susan.
Yeah.
A little part of it, but I think great questions, guys. Thanks for putting your thoughts into those. Well, I advise everybody to learn more about it. Get onto Susan's website. We'll email those links to you guys at the end of the week to read more about it. If you've got some developments or areas that you want for your home investigated, get a meter, reach out to Susan on her website there. And yeah, thank you so much, Susan, for creating more awareness for our community at Think Property Club. We want, for ourselves and our students to build better homes for themselves and for others. And it is a topic that will just get bigger and bigger as new materials come into play, and we question why we use things, why are we going with this product, how is this going to benefit the buyers. And I've seen people build homes that are completely based around healthy living, right?
Yeah,
and it's like, why don't people want to live in that? Or people just going to a resort, like you said, and wanting to feel better.
Yeah, well, we have a hard time choosing a resort to go to now because our home is so healthy. We've had to choose to be in a healthy environment, and we've had to build. Well, not build, but renovate this place to make it a healthy environment.
And it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, it's possible.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Susan. And thank you, everybody, for coming on today. I hope you've got some good tips and good knowledge on understanding this topic further. If you've got any questions, shoot us an email or go into our Facebook group. Thank you for being part of the community, and I hope you guys have a good rest of the week. And I look forward to our next Think Property Club podcast with our next speaker. And Susan, I hope to get in touch with you soon as well.
Yeah,